But let's wait for some people to tune in. Surely everyone's still celebrating, still very happy about that. Keep tuning in, guys. Comment what you thought. Who was your player of the day? What was your highlight? Let me know. No Tiger King. Yeah, it's hard to go past Dan Butler, isn't it, with that performance against his old team. Nearly kicking 4 goals, nearly kicking the sealer in the last quarter, but geez, he's impressive. Got to be pickup of the season so far. Welcome everyone. Keep tuning in. So many people tuning in right now. Keep tuning in, and then we'll get into it. Dan Butler have my kids, says Justin. Oh, thanks for your effort, Saints TV. No worries, Jim. It's much easier to do a live when we've won and when we've beaten the reigning fucking premiers, guys. I know that people are going to say, and I know the week's going to happen, similar to the Bulldogs game, where a lot of the news outlets, a lot of the media personalities are going to say, oh, what's wrong with Richmond? What's wrong with Richmond? Blah, blah, blah. They're going to talk about Richmond and how they've got issues. I'll tell you, no one is going to give us that much credit this week. And that's the most disappointing thing, but it doesn't matter. Richmond were coming off a loss, coming off a draw before that. They wanted to get back on the winners list. They bring in the best player in the competition, Dustin Martin. We're coming off a poor loss to Collingwood. And I said it before in my preview and on the podcast. I said, this is the week we need to prove that we learned something from playing Collingwood, that we took something away from playing one of the benchmark teams in the competition. And if we didn't respond today, there'd be a problem. Guys, we responded more than the supporters could have expected. That was a 4-quarter tough grind. We conceded the first goal within the first 20 seconds, and that was a bit of a worry. But from that point on, it was very similar to the Bulldogs game, where we just put the foot down, we backed our structures, we backed our game plan, and we got the job done. And that is all you can ask for. Ratton coached perfectly. Bringing in Josh Battle, Battle was superb. I don't know what his stats were in the end. I've got him here. But he did so many nice little things that inclusion was phenomenal. I thought even Marsh was actually decent in that last quarter. He stood up. Some of these lesser players, people giving Nick Caulfield shit all last week to be dropped. He was very composed, and it was one of his best games I've seen from him in the back line. I have to say the same thing with Ben Long off half-back. Ben Long off half-back had dash. He had sometimes too much dash. Sometimes we took the players on when it was unrealistic to do so. But we wanted to fight through the tackles. We wanted to break through Richmond's pressure press that they put on teams, that pressure hold that they surround a team, they make them panic, and then they overwhelm them to the point where they just get the ball back and they pump it inside 50. Jack Rewalt, Tom Lynch mark the ball. Game over. How good was it seeing Richmond panic under pressure? I haven't seen that for a long time. Even against Collingwood, they got back into the game. Even last week against Hawthorn late, they got back in the game. In this, when they got 1 goal and we thought, okay, it's 15 points, it's getting close again. We'd get that goal, we'd get another one and put them out of reach. And that is something that shows the maturity of our squad, that we are capable of playing 4 quarters against a team that can put pressure on and kick goals quickly. That is something that a lot of other teams struggle to do against Richmond. They can put it on for a quarter or two, but they don't put the foot down and go for blood, really, to finish the game off. And it would have been great to kick over 100 points against Richmond, but we didn't, but it doesn't matter. It puts us 5th on the ladder with that 26-point win. 107% we're on, so we're 5th. Probably going to drop a few pegs if a few teams win this round, but we're 2 from 2 now, and it was critical for us to get that win because we're going into a stretch now. We've got Carlton, we've got Geelong and Port Adelaide. So if we can get over Carlton and go into Geelong with some confidence, anything happens. But in terms of today, when you look at the overall spread of the team, it's phenomenal to think that there was an absolute superstar, game breaker in terms of possessions. You look at possessions, you look at best on ground. Jack Steele had 21. Jack Billings at 25. Dan Butler at 14, Ben Long 17, Jack Loney 16, Josh Battle 16, Hunter Clark 15. It was an even spread across the board, and I dare say Zach Jones would have finished close to best on ground with the way he started. I'm not sure what happened where he didn't. I don't think he finished the game, so there's some injury there. Comment and let me know if you know what that injury is. But obviously Gresh, serious fractured eye socket there we saw at the end of the game. And I thought he looked like he was getting going this season. He's had a few tough weeks, but he looked like he was getting into it until that injury. But he played the game out, so I assume he's going to be okay going into next week. But Dan Butler, he sets the tone. He is the barometer for us now. He kicks a couple of early goals and he's on. He does some special things. He set up Tim Membry, kicking it to him lace out. The plan for us, and I thought it was, going into this game was... we might have been too tall with Paddy Ryder in as well as Josh Battle. Obviously, Paddy Ryder comes out. Dean Kent comes in. Dean Kent did some special things in this game. He kicked 2 ripper goals, 2 critical goals in the game where it put us out of reach. And I think it was the last quarter with that snap. And then that clever little left snap in the square from the outside of his left boot was very clever. So having Dean Kent come in and a player like him that we don't expect to be a regular every week to come in and kick 2 goals in a critical game in critical times was phenomenal. And in terms of the structure, having the one ruck, I thought it was better. Although Nankervis was probably Richmond's best with he had 26 hitouts, 17 disposals, and got over 180 Supercoach points. Rowan Marshall had 15. He also had 25 hitouts and played a great game himself. I thought he was better, although his opponent was the opposition's best. We were still better at the contest. In passages, we were dominating around the clearance. Our players had, the chemistry that we were lacking last week. We knew where Rowe was going to go. And I think maybe, with Paddy Ryder being so new and limited training with coronavirus, maybe we're not really gelling with him in the ruck just yet. But I thought this was Rowe's close to his best game. And I thought in terms of our midfield structure, it was close to our best performance against one of the best midfields, with Cochin, with Dusty, Prestia. You got Edwards roaming through there. So there's so many good players in there, but we negated them and we did it for the whole game. The back line was great. I thought Wilkie was phenomenal. I thought that was Jake Carlisle's best game. The passage where he was running back with the flight and he had to punch it from, I think it was Tom Lynch or Jack Rewalt, one of the two. And he can't even see the ball and he just timed it perfectly. That's something that you can't teach. And that's the stuff that, he took a few very good intercept marks. Just, just lazily just took a mark when it was a contested mark. He didn't make any mistakes. I thought, Wilkie was great. I thought Dougal Howard was great. Seb Ross did a few iffy things that cost us a few goals, and I'm going to out him there. That one where he handled it backwards for some reason, and they end up kicking a goal through, I think it was Jack Rewalt. Was a bit iffy, but in terms of our endeavour, phenomenal. You couldn't ask for more. In terms of our disposal, there was some great kicking. There was, I feel like we played at the MCG and maybe it put us off with the new style, but with the being, a tighter game on the fast deck, and you could use your feet more. It exposed Richmond because Richmond want the ball to be frenetic. They want it to be on the deck, but when you're kicking well in terms of your field kicking, you keep the ball, you keep the possession. And even in the last quarter when, we thought maybe, okay, Richmond are getting a bit of a run on here, having that kicking slowed Richmond down, took all the momentum out of the game and put it back into our possession. And I think that's the best thing to come from this game is that Richmond were angry because the game wasn't on their terms. We can see from this game, that is the blueprint for Brett Ratton. We go full, helter-skelter at any team, and we didn't do that against Collingwood. We did it against the Dogs, we did it for a half against North, and we did it for a full game against Richmond, and we should have won all 3. We lost to North, but the other 2, we did exactly what we needed to do and got the job done. Tim Membry played great. Max King didn't get the reward for all of his hard work, but he was at the contest. Every time the ball went inside 50, he got close to marking it, or he was the first player to get it at ground level and get a quick hands. And that's something that he's only going to get better at. He's already got the ground ball skills for a big man. Imagine getting the easy part right and just marking it. It was a great game. I can't pick anyone that that had a bad game. You know, it's going to be hard to drop players. You know, the back line was solid. We only conceded the 10 goals, and then we've kicked 15-3. That's another thing that we don't usually do. In the last 2 games at Marvel, we've kicked 14-4 and won by nearly 5 goals, and then we've kicked 15-3. That's 29 goals 7 in our last 2 games at Marvel Stadium. So, you know, that's phenomenal accuracy. And that, you know, Richmond had 10-7. They had 1 less scoring shot than us. It could have been a close game. They missed their chances. We took ours, and you can see what difference it makes when you kick accurately. You know, they could have been in this game if it was the other way around. If we missed a few easy ones and they kick straight, could have been a close game. But even just kicking straight puts you in a stronger position. You don't necessarily need to play that much better in terms of the ground, you know, in terms of getting the ball and just general play. But if you're kicking straight when you have your chances, you're going to win. 9 times out of 10, you're going to win. I think it was the third quarter where we had 4 inside 50s for 3 goals, and Richmond had 7 for none. And that's the efficiency. That's the efficiency there. So enough of me just talking excitedly. I'm going to go through some of these comments. There have been a lot of them. So keep them coming. I'm going to just scroll to as far back as I go. Jim's asking, Jakey, who's your best on ground? Butler was the next level. I'd have to say, Saner of the day to me would have to be Butler. He nearly kicked 4 goals. He set the tone. He did so many good things around the ground in terms of his tackling. How many tackles did he lay? He laid 3 tackles, most of them inside 50, 14 possessions, 3 goals, 2. Like 10 kicks. He set up Membry's goal. He would be close to man of the match for me. Next week we learnt Gresham must be dropped. Gresh, you know, against Carlton, he might be able to find some form. You bloody ripper, says Leon. Battle, says Heath. Battle was great. 16 disposals. Had so many chances to kick a goal. That passage where he set up Membry, where he just dinked it to the top of the square, was very clever. And that's the thing. He's got good ball use. He can take a mark. He laid some ripping tackles. And he's such a contested player. You need that sort of player in your team. And I was very impressed with him. And there is no reason why he gets dropped if he's putting in performances like that. Not bad from Carlisle, says Katrina. Sharon says, what a great weekend of sport. The Reds are champions of England and the Saints beat the reigning premiers. Yep, Maddie Rewalt, mad Liverpool fan. So she's going to be looking up thinking, you know, Saints won, amazing. And Liverpool, her team won. And we raised a lot of money for Maddie's vision again. So good on everyone for donating. For a lot of the people commenting saying why we didn't wear the purple Guernseys. I'm tipping it's probably because we didn't know when we were playing Richmond with the new fixture coming out. And we just couldn't prepare for when it was going to happen. And I think Richmond might have worn more purple, but they couldn't prepare as well. We didn't know we were going to play them in round 4. So no heads up there and no way to prepare and print all the Guernseys and get all the merch done. But I think they're still selling them. I'm not sure about that. Ben Long's tackles. I know, he crunches into players. Carey says, how much of a difference does kicking straight make? Delicious to watch. It makes all the difference. Absolutely all the difference. Kent was good. He was. Another tough decision next week with Kent not being in the original squad to play today, being a late inclusion, and then having a game like that. You know, how do you drop him? Radley says, everyone's going to talk about the biggest and best players, but I hope you talk about the smaller names who just stood up and did their jobs. I am going to mention that. Patton again, Caulfield, Hunter Clark. Some of the things that Hunter Clark does in traffic is ridiculous, you know. And those are the sort of players that against teams like Richmond, where there's such a focus on pressuring the team, when you've got a player that can take that pressure but then actually get the ball out and open up the game, it's very special. And we've got a number of them that can do that. Jack Billings did a bit of that. Zach Jones did a bit of that. You've got Brad Hill and you've got Hunter Clark that can do that. And that's something that you can't teach. Luke's saying Battle showed why he needs to be in. Butler, brilliant. Good signs from young players like Long, Caulfield, Patton and Clark. They're only going to get better against teams like this. So it's very exciting to see them grow. 4 quarters of Saints footy. Best game of Saints footy I've seen in a long time. I'd have to agree. I don't remember being this happy after a win. You know, we beat Melbourne last year and that was great. But this looks like it's the start of something. You know, this is the nucleus. This is the foundation for more, and we have to go into the game against Carlton next week and we have to put the foot down. You know, we can't be lazy about this. We know what happens when we don't perform, and when teams are 10-20% below their best, they get done. Richmond were that, but we were on. So if we can maintain the pressure and the efficiency inside 50 that we had today, we can beat anyone, guys. Changing my daughter's name to Dan, says Razor. Battle's tackles were amazing as well, says Jai. No changes next week. Ryder doesn't get a look in, says Oliver. Marsh did his job as did Kent. Battle did well. Still want to find a spot for Dunstan, Webster and give Bytel a go. I don't think we change next week, guys. I honestly don't think, unless Jones doesn't get up or Gresham needs a week off with his fractured eye. I'm not sure. Seb Ross tagging Dusty. If not, he had a mare. Seb Ross was a bit iffy again, but, you know, I don't want to talk about the negatives too much. I don't know what he finished with in the end in terms of disposals, but if he did tag Dusty, I thought, you know, he kept Dusty pretty quiet. Butler can have my girlfriend's baby. Andrew saying I'm a nervous pessimist before games. Didn't expect that. Great win despite the bloody umpires. Concerned about Seb Ross, though. Very ordinary despite good starts. Both Patton and Caulfield continue to disappoint me. Battle was good. I disagree. I think Caulfield and Patton were great. I think they're doing their jobs. And for players that have played less than 50 games and they're taking the heat against Collingwood and Richmond in the last 2 weeks, it's only going to be better for them. They're only going to get more experience and get more composed with the ball. And there were so many nice things that Caulfield did where he looked indecisive, but then he composed himself and kicked it down the line and hit the target. And I think we ended up scoring from that a few times. So Caulfield's only going to get better, and so is Patton. Carlisle still too slow when the ball hits the ground. It didn't hit the ground a lot when he was around. We took a lot of marks and rebounded very efficiently. The Man of Steel had a great game. He did. But again, no absolute standout. We're not sitting here thinking, geez, Tim Membry kicked 10 and we won. It was such an even board. Our biggest goal kicker was Butler with 3. And we kicked 14 or 15, you know. So it's such, you know, these are the sort of performances that you beat most teams. You beat the good teams because you're even across the board. You are not reliant. Richmond today, to me, were reliant on Dusty. They were reliant on Cochin. They were reliant on Riewoldt and Lynch to do the hard yards. But then the rest of the team didn't. We had a workmanlike performance where everyone, all the way to the lesser players like Patton and Caulfield that did the job, it just kind of cycled through the rest of the team. And when your lesser players like that are playing well, the rest of the team stands up. Says Seb Ross needs to be dropped for Dunstan. Be very interesting this week to see if that happens. Man have still played a great game. Loving the ball movement. Had enough of around and around the boundaries. Stop, start, miss. I know, like the passage where Zach Jones, Brad Hill kind of ran through the middle. Zach Jones kicks it in front of Dan Butler. Dan Butler snaps the goal. All 3 of our new recruits had a say in that. That's phenomenal. Butler best on ground. Zach Jones couldn't be tackled. I know it was scary to see how easily he got through their tackles. Zach Jones hamstring. Okay, so apparently it's a hamstring. Hopefully not a serious one. Dan saying, wow, well done Saints. Butler killing me playing for you guys. My wife's team, enjoy the win. Looking forward to seeing you boys next week. Blues fan in peace. Yes, Dan. Dan is from Blue Abroad, the great Carlton fan channel. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting game next week playing the Blues, who are full of confidence as well. I thought we had the right balance. I thought dropping Paddy Ryder was a massive difference. You take out Dean Kent and you're probably too tall against a Richmond team, but having Dean Kent in with Jack Loney, you know, with Butler running around in the forward line, even Max King tackling beneath his knees, you know, he adds to, you know, he's almost another small forward in a scary way. You know, he adds that sort of forward line pressure from a big man, which we haven't had in a long time. Great kicking as well, 15-3. Bo was saying, I was a skeptic about the limited changes to our team from last week, but well done to the selectors. You stuck by the team and backed them to put in the better effort. And that's something I mentioned in the preview was, I'm glad we had minimal changes because Rats put the challenge to the team and he said, I know you guys can do better and I'm going to put you up against a team that's going to be raring for a win coming off a loss in Richmond, the reigning premiers. I want you to man up, grow some balls and take it on and prove me wrong. Tell me why I shouldn't drop you is basically what Rats did. And all of them said, well, I don't want to be dropped. I'm going to stand up. And they all did. And you see the result. You know, that was great coaching from Ratton. Great coaching. And the way that we played our forwards was very good. And I think it was Nick Riewoldt or Dunstall that spotted that we didn't spread. We made each defender accountable. Richmond love to be able to rebound. They love to not even man up on their direct opponents. They want to own the game and want you to focus on them. But having Marsh, having Membry, King, Rowan Marshall rest there a little bit. They all kind of collectively went, into a huddle and drew all of the defenders, together instead of spreading and having that spread between each Richmond player. They wanted to bring them together, create a chaotic ball, and then almost Richmond style, put the pressure on with the smalls and then get the reward. And I thought that was really clever from our forwards. We didn't do that against the Dogs. We went uncontested and lead up style. This was huddle, get it in, and expose them at the ground, which was really good. And no doubt Jared Ruffhead and even Dan Butler, having come from Richmond, would have a say in how we played that structure. Daniel says, best game I've seen us play for a while. Kept them out of it when they tried to get back in. Only thing that pissed me off was when we got the turnover. There was no one at home. If we can fix that, premiership. Nick says, let's hope we can learn how to play at the G. This is why we should play half our home games at the G. Butler served it up, dished it out and set the table. Best on ground. Dan Butler. Let's go. Richmond have a small back and inclusion of Battle and Marsh was the key. I agree, we expose them in the air. And that's something that a lot of teams don't do. They love to go small against Richmond, and that's giving Richmond the head start. That's saying, we're going to change our style to suit you. And that's Rats said, no, F that. We're going to play our way. I know how we can expose them in the air, make them nervous, and then already at the ground level, we've already got enough smalls that we can expose them there. So we didn't need more smalls coming in. Butler best on ground. Marsh will be a very good player. Just give him more game time. Oh, God. Some of these comments. Play the grand final at Marvel, says Scott. Membry is our barometer. Caulfield played very well, says Jai. Ross's job on Martin was not the problem. It's his complete lack of efficient disposal. Disgraceful. That handball over his head was reckless, under 10 stuff, says Andrew. Ruffy has been recruit of the year, says Radley. Shane says, Saints TV, it's great to allow supporters to comment on the game, even from Armidale and New South Wales. Go Saints, no worries, Shane. And everyone keep commenting. I'll keep shouting it out. There's a lot of comments, so I'm trying to get through as many as I can. What a win, go Saints, says Kevin. Charles says, Butler, Membry, Kent can hit the scoreboard. Just wait until King finds his feet. Battle belongs in the team. High fives for our new recruits. They've added another dimension to our team. Hunter Clark showing amazing form. I reckon he's a future silky midfielder, says Radley. I agree with that. Zach Jones out. Jimmy Webster in. Could be interesting. It could be Dunstan. No qualms about no purple in the Guernseys. The lad wore purple socks anyway. Simply, Tigers didn't have a player to cover Marsh. That's true. They didn't look like, especially late in the game, we kind of took over in that respect. Ross was average, Patton poor decision making. I disagree with that. Jim says, if Zach Jones comes out due to injury, who comes in? Probably Dunstan, or maybe even Bytel could give him a game. But I think Dunstan, on merit, probably deserves the game. I can't see who other midfielder deserves to come in ahead of someone like Luke Dunstan, who's seasoned and can come in and do a job. It can release another player that we've had to put in the middle that could play on the outside. Just a side note, but we still should be grateful with the few amount of injuries we've had, especially the lack of serious ones. Exactly. You look at Collingwood with Jeremy Howe, terrible injury. Thoughts on Gear if he's fit for next game? Bring him in. But I don't see who would come out, unless it's Patton, but I think that would be really harsh to bring him out. Bring in Webster. Big ups to Carlisle this week. He was a rock. I agree. He was a rock. He didn't have to do much at ground level. All he did was negate the marking power of Tom Lynch and Jack Royal, and that already puts us, in a very good position. Without Carlisle there, you've got Dougal Howard, who wants to be more the intercept punch, and he would have to man up on one of them, and we don't need him to do that. So having Jake Carlisle there to take that pressure away from the Wilkies and the Dougal Howards is a very important factor in why we were so good in the back line. Radley says Brad Hill copped some heat last week, but his running was fucking immense today. We'll start plays at one end. I know the goal that he kicked, he was at one end of the ground and he ends up kicking the goal. That's amazing capacity. And the fact that he can run games out doing that is scary. He's going to kick a lot of important goals late in games simply because he's got the work rate to get into those attacking positions and his opponents can't go with him. They trail him. We're a champion team, not a team of champions. That's a good metaphor there. Stuart says, how freaking good was that? Butler is a weapon of a player, looking like a captain. Radley says, another Blues and Saints TV collab for preview next week. Maybe, but it's more likely we're going to get Terry, who runs Blue Abroad, to go on the podcast, which will be great to have a chat with him. Jones, Ross out, send him a message that mediocrity is no more. Geary Webster in. I like Ryder in place of Marsh too, but hard to change a winning team. Go Saints. When King puts on size, watch out. Jeez, so many comments, guys. I might have to leave it there because I'm going to go. I think dinner's ready and I'm going to run. Guy says, in general play, just happy with the effort all round. Long will find his feet and will destroy the backline running. Yeah, like Ben Long is a player that, he makes a few mistakes here and there, but he opens us up with his dash. He's not afraid, when a player's in front of him and he gets the ball, he's not afraid to fend them off and then give the hands. He doesn't just panic and bomb it. He composes himself, takes them on, gets his hands free and opens up the game. And that composure out of half-back is so important in today's football. With the amount of pressure teams try to put on, to be able to, compose yourself when you endure that heat and then be able to give the hands off to a Hunter Clark or a Zach Jones or someone running past that can open up the game, it's great because Richmond at that point, when they're putting on pressure at half forward, their backs push up. They create, a zone. And 9 times out of 10, Richmond last year turned that ball over and they don't need to worry about the team hitting the rebound. But when you've got someone like Ben Long that can break the lines, Hunter Clark that can compose himself, you open up the game, you break that zone and you get plays around the back, like Butlers, like Brad Hills, easy goals out the back. And we wouldn't have been able to do that last year with the teams that we were fielding because we didn't have the composure. And even if we did, we didn't have the disposal efficiency to open up the game. So to have both against teams like Richmond, to come, to be able to pull it off and get a 5-goal win against one of the top teams in the comp, you couldn't ask for more, guys. So I'm losing my voice, honestly. So I'm going to leave it there. That was the best win we've had in seasons. Brett Ratton's best win. And we're 2-2. We are 5th on the ladder. What's for dinner? Says Scott. It is chicken burritos. So I'm gonna, it's gonna be beautiful. I'm gonna eat 10 of those. Watch the replay. Eat more. Watch the replay and just recycle. It's a great week to be a Saints fan. We've rebounded from a disappointing loss to Collingwood. We learnt our bloody lesson. Let's hope that the boys keep it up and we tiger soup, says Asia. If we keep it up and we go into the Carlton game next week full of bloody confidence, 2-2, top 8, you beauty Saints. Enjoy the rest of your night, Saints fans. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Please share this, like it. It's going to be on YouTube, and stay tuned for the podcast where we dissect this game in more detail with Joycey and Marshy on Wednesday. It'll be released on all of the streaming services, so enjoy that. Take care, Saints, and go you bloody Saints. See you guys.